because this is a crisis press conference. My name is Maureen Kademaunga. I'm from #SheVotes 2018, a campaign to organize, mobilize, and agitate the female lot to participate in the coming election in 2018. We are here as different social movements. I will not start to name each and every one of the movements represented here. The spirit behind this whole press conference is that since last year, when the people of Zimbabwe, the citizens, found their voices through organized platforms such as #ThisFlag, #Tajamuka, and many others, to start to be critical of the government, we did see that there is power in the numbers of ordinary people coming together and speaking out. Today we come here looking at the situation in the country, that the crisis has deepened, the social, the political, and the economic hardships have worsened for the ordinary people of Zimbabwe. So I have to make one disclaimer first, that this is not a coalition, because I know this is the buzzword these days. This is not a coalition or a coming together to form one thing of social movements. But we are coming together with the understanding that our voices are more powerful and stronger when we speak together. We will continue and we'll always, work with our different constituencies, our different platforms from today going onwards. But every now and then, we will have joint action, we'll have joint press conferences. And this one is very critical and very important, because I think where we are as a country really demands that we come together and speak with one voice. So I will quickly hand over to Pastor Ivan Mawarire, the leader of #ThisFlag movement. He will read out our presser. After that, we will have questions handled by those here present, Ms. Mkwananzi, Linda, and everyone else. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Well covered and well introduced, Maureen Kademaunga, who's part of just this platform, of citizens' movements that's beginning to talk about the crisis in the country. Just to also let you know that we have a similar statement that is being read out in Bulawayo today. In fact, they've started right now as well. So you can see that this is more than just those of us that are in Harare. This is now a national statement that we are making, representing the citizens. As I start again, thank you journalists for being here on short notice. I did recognize a few other faces here. Let me recognize Dr. Shingumunyeza. I know he's a notable citizen in our nation, and it is very interesting to see that he takes an interest in things like this as well. I'll read out our statement. It's written, we agreed on this, and so this is what I will read. Then we will open up for questions, and Promise and the team will be on hand to answer. We come together today in solidarity with the nation of Zimbabwe to condemn in the strongest possible terms the shambolic and embarrassing state of our nation 37 years after independence. As the citizens of Zimbabwe, we do this exercising our full rights as stated in the section 67 of part 2 in chapter 4 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which says that we are allowed to participate individually or collectively in gatherings or groups or in any other manner in peaceful activities to influence, challenge, or support the policies of the government or any political or whatever cause, close quote. A year after we Zimbabweans, young and old, began publicly and fearlessly holding the government to account on the misrule of our nation and mismanagement of resources, we find the government still refusing to hear us. The situation is becoming worse by the day, and we, the ordinary people, will not accept this any longer. We are standing together yet again. Enough is enough. Our economy has collapsed, and it has collapsed because of failing policies that are not conducive for investment or growth. We find ourselves at the mercy of a cash crisis which has already locked us out of our own earned cash and has made business a nightmare to conduct. There is no doubt that bond notes have failed spectacularly. And they have failed spectacularly because of the following or 4 reasons. Number 1, they are certainly not at par with the United States dollars that we all originally banked. Secondly, or B, they have served only to take away all the US dollars from the system. You can't find any of the US dollars in the system right now, no matter where you go. C, they are not the incentive only that the governor said they would be. And D, they are not even accessible. In essence, the government has once again succeeded in illegally taking our money as citizens. The Honorable Governor of the Reserve Bank is on record committing to us as citizens in a meeting that we held with him that he would resign if the bond notes failed. Bond notes have completely failed. We challenge the Governor of the Reserve Bank to honor his word and resign, as he promised to do in the event of failure. Corruption is still unchecked, as we still have no answer to the missing billions, yet senior government political officials live lavish lifestyles in the face of suffering masses. Not a single person has been questioned, or a single report has been made public in connection with the missing $15 billion from we challenge government on clear answers and decisive action on the matter of the stolen $15 billion. That issue should not go away. It should never go away. For all the citizens, we say the issue of $15 billion should never become an issue of history. It's missing money, and we demand answers. Over the years, and notably over the last 12 months, government has intentionally trampled our rights as citizens. We have been brutally handled. We have been harassed using the justice system simply because we exercise our constitutional right to freedom of assembly and association and freedom to demonstrate, to protest, and to present petitions. Our citizens are right now being at alarming levels by our police, who behave rabidly as they throw spikes with no regard for safety or preservation of precious human life. This is a concern to us, Wazalwan, that the police throw spikes. I know that it's been said before, but it can't be said enough. Zimbabwe is not a zoo where people are trapped like animals like that. And so we want to condemn that. Every day we're being tormented by the ridiculous police road that are designed to do nothing else but to siphon money out of us. We challenge government to stop the abuse of justice and to stop police harassment of the citizens of Zimbabwe. Today, in the sad history of a free Zimbabwe, more of our citizens are living in abject poverty. This government has failed in all its promises on job creation and poverty alleviation. In fact, yesterday's May Day for us Zimbabweans only served to remind us and to show openly how we have become a nation of people that have got no jobs, we are not employed, and how we have a generation that no longer knows how to be employed. More people are out of work, more families are going to bed hungry. Millions of our citizens are leaving the country to escape poverty. Sadly, some are even committing suicide. We cannot sit by and watch. Something must urgently be done to save lives. We call on government to radically change key policies and prioritize the lives of the suffering masses and not the political elite. We have almost completely lost our critical infrastructures that deliver social services. Our health system is on its knees. Our education system is weak. I'm sure the other day we were all shocked hearing the Minister of Education suggesting that it is progressive for you and I to pay for our school fees using goats. And his justification is that he did it when he was growing up. I'm concerned that we don't see that we are going backwards and instead of going forwards. And so our education system is weak, and our welfare activity is now delivering nothing to the most underprivileged of our nation. And I'm sure you can see the orphans, you can see the widows, you can see the destitute in our nation are increasing. Our hard-working civil servants are working in the most deplorable facilities and with meager earnings, which government refuses to review, whilst yet again our top government officials never go a single month without pay or a single year without new cars. As citizens, we call for the urgent restoration of critical social services and the restoration of confidence in our civil service. Every community in Zimbabwe matters. No one is more important than others. We condemn and we reject the systematic marginalization and exclusion of other Zimbabwean regions. We refuse to be divided, and we most certainly refuse to be classed for whatever reason. We put the government on notice today that we will no longer accept marginalization, division, and being treated as second-rate citizens. One of the most shameful occurrences in Zimbabwe is how our government has treated our elderly, our senior citizens. After they came back from the war, they worked hard to develop our nation. And just as they retired to enjoy their savings, they lost everything. In 2007 to 2008, our nation's poor policies, aided by corruption, robbed them in broad daylight. But our determined parents and grandparents rolled up their sleeves, went back to work to rebuild. And just as they wiped the sweat off their brow, our government came again in 2016 and now 2017. And we are watching our senior citizens as they helplessly get pillaged again. They sleep for days in bank queues. They faithfully come with their tobacco only to be surprise taxed and still spend weeks trying to get their money out whilst their families starve, yet government is paid cash for that tobacco. We challenge government to resolve the cash crisis and restore confidence in the banking sector. The biggest losers in all this are the youth. The young people of our nation are amongst the brightest in the region, yet we are being cheated out of our chance to grow and to raise families in a decent society. In our thousands every year and ending up on the streets doing nothing. We are not permitted to lead. We are not permitted to flourish with ideas, and we are not permitted to speak our minds. We are used for political mileage. We are used for violence, and we are used as cheap disposable labor. Today we are drawing a line in the sand as we start to find each other and stand in solidarity for what we want for our future. To our fellow citizens in every part of the world, we know the Zimbabwe that we want, and this is not it. The Zimbabwe we want, number one, respects the rule of law, and in particular the constitution of our land. The Zimbabwe that we want respects the original ideals of the liberation struggle. The Zimbabwe that we want works zealously to protect our women, the disabled, the elderly, and our children. The Zimbabwe that we want promotes the youth and sets them up to be successors of a better nation. And number five, the Zimbabwe that we want puts the interests of the country before those of self or political affiliation. This Zimbabwe that we want is within reach, but it is only within reach if we come together, stand together, speak together, and act together. Today, as we challenge our government, we invite you, the citizens, on a journey of finding each other for that one common goal, creating the Zimbabwe that we want. Across tribal lines, across racial divides, across political affiliations, and generational lines, let's find each other and save this beautiful country called Zimbabwe. Soon we will be making a call for you, fellow citizens. Peace with us in our different movements. Boldly answer the call. The unprecedented mobilization of Zimbabweans everywhere has begun. We thank you. We will now open for questions that we have, that we will try to answer. My colleagues here, in particular led by Promise Mkwananzi, who will start off to handle any questions that we may have. We're handing out copies of the statement for those of you that may need it. But thank you very much. I hope that it has been clear and that you have understood that what we have, which we have said. Okay. Okay. Thank you. We're going to have our questions now. If I can ask for your attention. Thank you.
How do you intend to go about all this? I know Zimbabweans are aware of everything that you've highlighted and hinted in the statement, but there's something which is lacking with regards on the way forward. What is the way forward? You have read the statement. What do you intend to do? Do you intend to go into the street to protest again? Do you have a new mechanism to make sure that Zimbabweans, they wake up from the slumber and join you? What is the way forward?
Thank you. We'll take 3 persons and then allow for. So if there's a second one.
Maybe you would be the most suitable to answer this one. There are elections next year, and you are campaigning for the women's vote in the next elections. How do you think the electoral reforms being undertaken by the ZEC, particularly the PDR system which will vote out, how do you think it will address the allegations of electoral rigging and the exclusion of other votes, disenfranchisement, which has aggrieved a lot of women in the country?
Thank you. Let me ask you, when you ask a question, please, if you can just introduce yourself. If it's a media house or if you're a journalist, just let us know which publication so that we're just aware of your premise. A third question, I think we will answer those.
There are growing calls for, my name is Chief Richard from Alpha Media. There are growing calls for coalitions among democratic movements, particularly in the opposition political parties. Where do the movement for your movements, the different movements in the social sector, where do you come in? Where do you see yourself fitting into the broader coalition that is being led by political
parties?
Thank you. First of all, I think I want to say that this statement represents the various social movements that may or may not be here. I think you're asking about the way forward. And the way forward starts here, in the sense that in the past we have been operating from our different corners. It has worked in some way. This quietness, many journalists have been asking about this quietness. I think a reflection process has been taking place among people in their individual capacities, and we realize that the first step in the direction of the way forward is to put our voices together and our actions together. The things that we are going to be doing are things which are totally permissible in a democratic society. Peaceful protests, pressure, and all the other means that we have used in the past. We know that people will be arrested for things that are lawful. As I speak, Patson Zamara and Tatinda Nombiara are actually in custody for no apparent reason. That reflects to you the attitude of our government towards its citizens. But we are well aware of that. So in terms of the way forward, the first thing is that we have now united. I think it's quite a significant step, if not a historic one, that that we've come together under one umbrella as citizens' movements to chart the path for social and economic reforms for our country. And that is what we'll be doing. And we're going to be doing this through unity and action. The unity of the social movements to act together, to put pressure on the government, to mobilize citizens, to speak out, as we saw happening last year. I believe that the road that we have taken now, we can actually do something remarkable if we follow the path of unity and action. And I can assure you that what we did last year is a drop on the ocean in terms of what is going to be happening. And every citizen has a duty and obligation to participate. I think that the criminalization of activism in Zimbabwe can only be defeated by ensuring that we have large numbers coming out to participate in political activism. And that is what we aim to do. The second question with regards to the coalition, first and foremost, we are not a political party. We don't intend to form a political party. We are social activists. We are human rights activists. That is what we want to do. Our aim is to conscientize the citizen, to mobilize the citizen to live the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. It's only the citizens that can actualize it. So that is what we want to do. We believe that the issue of the implementation of the Constitution is a dual process. The government has a role to play, but also us as citizens, we can actually help implement the Constitution by doing the things that the Constitution allows us to do. So that is what we are going to be doing. We're going to be holding the government accountable at every corner, at every opportunity where we can. We're going to be mobilizing citizens to understand that these rights are their rights and only them can actualize them. So with regards to the coalition, following, and we are quite aware that the political parties are in the process of creating a coalition. And I think it is every citizen's hope to see a united coalition that is going to stand against the state of affairs that we have in our country. If you go back to South Africa before, at the end of apartheid, we had the UDF, which was the United Democratic Movement, which was a broad-based alliance of the various forces in South Africa, which then led to the historic end of apartheid in 1994. So we are aware of all those models and all those things, but we are not civil society activists, if you want, or social movement activists. We want to see the betterment of our country. We want to see the betterment of the lives of the people of this country. And we believe that all these processes that are taking place, they are part and parcel of the broader democratic process or democratic development, which is good for this country.
So on the question on elections, electoral reforms are very critical and important. We acknowledge the work that NERA and other platforms are doing to push for those reforms. My own prognosis is that those reforms will not come. So as we work in our different platforms, mobilizing citizens to go to register to vote, we are working with the critical assumption that the electoral reforms are not coming. And looking at the elections that have happened before, we think that rigging and electoral manipulation has happened mostly because there's been voter apathy. So if we've beat voter apathy and we vote in our numbers, it is going to be very, very difficult for any political outfits to try and rig the election. The BVR process, very welcome, very progressive, but already there's been a gap which we are trying to fill. When you go to the rural areas now, we know that other political parties, specifically ZANU-PF, has been going out there and educating people that the BVR process will allow for, ZAC to take your particulars, when they look at your iris, when they take your fingerprints and everything, they can tell who you voted for. Kind of intimidation has already started, and that education gap needs to be filled. So this is something that we are also working very hard at making sure that we educate citizens on the BVR and on how it does not expose you or expose your vote or your private choice that you make when you're in the ballot box. So for us, really, the electoral reforms, with or without them, we believe that we must participate in this election as citizens, vote in our numbers, and be prepared to defend our votes.
See, part of what we are wanting to achieve here, like my brother Promise said rightfully, this document can only be animated by the citizens. The Constitution of Zimbabwe gives us rights, and we must actualize those rights. We have to absolutely grab these things and put them into effect. So this is one of the critical jobs of this united actions that we are going to be doing, is beginning to let people know across our country, in the rural areas, kuti bumbiro remutemo nderenyu ende uyezve rinokupa ikodzero dzekuite zvinhu zvisiri pamutemo. Munhu ukataura chokwadi chiri pamwoyo wako hausungirwe izvozvo. So those kinds of things, because there are certain things zvisingadzidzike vanhu except by other citizens. Dzimwe dzenguva vanhu havateereri, they don't listen to big organizations. Sometimes people just listen to their neighbor. They listen to the person across the road from them. This is the essence of citizens' movements and what we're doing here. We are about grassroots mobilization. We are about going back to the people and saying, Vadikani, Twitter saying, to build our nation. This is what this is all about. So we're very excited about that. I'm going to ask for a last round of questions, and then we'll close our presser if there are any more questions that is this morning. Just the last round of maybe 3 questions, and then we can bring this to a close. But no doubt, as you prepare your questions, what you have witnessed here today is a historic moment in the timeline of the democratic process of Zimbabwe. Mark my words, mark our words. It's a historic moment, and we are not, as young people, as activists, together representing our older generation, we are not backing down from what our constitution allows us to do in building our nation. So last round of questions, and then we're going to be bringing our presser to a close, if there are any at all. Okay. I think I have one here.
Privileged to channel Deutsche Welle. Deutsche Welle, the German International Broadcasting. Accusations on civic movements that you are trying to topple the government of the day or form political parties. How do you answer to that?
And I know my colleagues who will probably add on to this. First and foremost, it's not a criminal act for anyone to form a political party. We are not doing that. There are those that are doing that, and they are allowed to do it. One of the misconceptions is that people have almost been taught by our government politics that's a lie. The Constitution tells us we can challenge the government. It means we can criticize their policies. It means we can hold them to account on what they have done. Okay, so this is what the state has now criminalized and has called subverting a constitutionally elected government. And I think for us, that's the concern, that the government is starting to normalize things that are not legal. They're starting to normalize a certain thought movement. Right now in Zimbabwe, everyone knows that to speak about politics. Almost everyone who is standing here, maybe a few exceptions, we've been arrested. There's nothing. You can just tell. So it's not toppling the government. If we want to change our government, which we are allowed to do, there is a constitutional process in here that gives us that right. Every 5 years, ZANU-PF is also included in a regime change agenda. So accuse us and accuse democratic forces of the regime change agenda. Yet no, the same government, in fact, is the one that sets up the regime change agenda process. True. Yes, every 5 years the government starts the regime change agenda process, which is the elections. So we are allowed to do this. So they keep accusing us of trying to topple the government it is frivolous, it is unfounded, it is not true, it is mischievous, and the citizens were demanding that that kind of treatment must stop. Otherwise, we can't build a nation, Zakanaka, if we do that. The biggest challenge, ladies and gentlemen, I get very emotional when I speak about this. Most of us in here, Tinevana, we have children. What kind of a nation are we leaving to them? Exactly. This is why most young people are just leaving this country in their numbers. Even in Uganda, one of the few countries where people celebrate when they get a passport. Visa, we say to our government, that is an embarrassment, it's a shame that that's what we have led our young people to in this nation. So we are definitely not trying to topple the government. However, we are trying to exercise our right to change the government if we so wish.
Just to add, I think the question of forming political parties is a very important one. And it seems to excite journalists a lot. My view is that there are already too many political parties in the field. And if anybody forms another one, the citizens will just say, there you go again. Another one. So we are not in that route, my friend, of forming a political party. We believe there are so many political parties. Some of them, a person just puts two flags between himself and announces a political party. So we are not in that route. We are in the route of the citizens. We stand with the citizens. And that is where we are going to be working from.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you so much for affording us your precious time and affording us space in your very important publications. We ask that you push the original agenda we've spoken about here today, and that you speak well of us. We need all the help we can get, and we thank you, and our hope is that you will be either hearing from us or hearing about us pretty soon. God bless you, and God bless this beautiful nation of Zimbabwe. Thank you. Bye-bye.